Greetings, everyone. Welcome to 4Point Pathways. I'm Eric Stevens. And it's a trap, not the podcast, okay, but your systems, your operational systems, the way you think about things. It's a trap. And you're trapped in an 8.5 by 11 by 5/1000ths of an inch space. You're trapped by paper. And not the fact that, yeah, you need to use paper. That's a different thing. We'll talk about that in a second. But you're trapped because your systems are built around paper. Your systems are built on the premise that you're going to send and receive paper. Well, yeah, but I don't. It's electronic. Yeah, but your systems don't know that. That's the difference. That's the trap. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's two aspects to it. The first is there's a technical operational trap that's occurring inside of it. And it's because your systems were built years ago. Even the new systems that you've got were built on the premise that paper needs to be processed. Many of you still have people doing data entry. You've got imaging systems. You've got OCR systems. You have the ability to receive handwritten documents, handwritten forms that your customers send in. They may never do that, but you can handle it. But that's the problem. Because you've done that, you're trapped with, well, everything I do needs to be thought about that way. Everything I do for those systems needs to be encompassed in an 8.5 by 11 box that is trapping me. But it's worse than that, because there's a psychological trap associated with this. When you start thinking about changing those things, you start thinking about an 8.5 by 11 way of viewing information. All right. And there's a lot of good reasons and there's a lot of bad reasons for that. Even when we talk about things on the web, we refer to pages. We refer to web pages. And we think of them. That's a mental trap that's blocking the way that you need to think about things. Now, you say, well, we're building web applications and we're building mobile applications, and you're still, how are you getting them in? Well, you're doing a lot of work, but that's a lot of effort. That's a lot of struggle because you have to get around your current systems. You have to bypass your current systems, okay? Because it's a trap right in the middle of it. It's a giant pit with stakes at the bottom. So we'll just go around it. Well, that's a lot of work and effort, and you're building a secondary product. How are you going to manage all of these different pieces, right? And you still have this on the lowest common denominator. Let me give you some examples. So we talk to a lot of organizations, but I'm going to give you a personal example. So I bank online. I bank with a major Canadian bank. They have a wonderful system. Absolutely adore it. Okay. I do everything online. I have on my mobile device. Okay. I have things. I quite literally just paid a credit card for my mobile device a couple of hours ago. All right. It's fantastic. It's I can pull data out of it. I can put it into my accounting system. Okay, I can read it. I can track it. I can do lots and lots of stuff. And it's a beautiful mobile application. It's a beautiful online application. There's a tab in there. It's a tab I never go to, but there's a tab in there. Okay, and when I click on the tab, there's a list of statements. That when I click on them, I get a 8.5 by 11 PDF statement of my monthly accounts. And they keep filling that up. All right, you're saying, well, that's a service. They're giving you a service. Okay, but nobody asked me. They just did it. And they're paying money on the back end to maintain that. Well, some people need to see those documents. Okay, then those people should get those documents. Why do I? Why am I getting them? I look at the transaction list. I review the transaction list. I download Excel files. Why are they giving this to me? Oh, well, it's easier to do it for everybody. That's the trap. That's the trap, because it's not easier to do it for everybody. It costs you. Okay, it costs you. And you're still thinking that even though you broke free and you built this beautiful web interface that has everything I need, I still need to send you this. You didn't ask me, didn't say anything. Okay, think about even the scenarios where I go there and I need to make a change that's outside of the scope of the online banking. I need to do a loan application. If I do a loan application, a document, an 8.5 by 11 document shows up for me to review. Well, now, okay, why? Because 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper, or A4 if you're European, whatever it is. Okay, that magic piece of paper, you go, well, you might want to print it. You're right. I might want to print it, except I'll have a printer. Okay, but all right, why is that the default? That's the psychological problem. We immediately go there and we say, that's the default. We'll just do that. As opposed to giving it online, summarizing that information, giving me a button that is optional associated with that and not producing that. But the reason why we do that is, oh, well, we need a signature on it. Well, actually, you don't. Okay. I've done other podcasts on digital signatures, so I'm not going to go down that path again, but you don't. Okay. So why are you doing that? Well, because that's what our systems spit at. Ah, there we are. That's the trap. That's the struggle. So these are the kinds of things that you see when we talk to organizations about this, is there's this constant view. Now, many organizations we talk to need to deal with people who don't have access to technology. And this is what's called an equitability problem, is how do we make technology equitable for people? So you're right, we might need paper forms so that people can fill things out, and we might need mechanisms to process them. But what's happening is that we're punishing all of our customers because we're trapped in the way that we have to process technology. We're pulling them all down and saying, I'm going to treat you all, regardless of your technological capabilities and your access to technology and your access to the internet. I'm going to treat you all like all you've got is a pen, and that's your only technology. And that's just harming your customers. And when we talk about digital transformation, what we're talking about is breaking free of that paper trap, right? Because that's really what the issue is. It's not putting it online, it's thinking about it in a way that makes sense for each of the different areas that we want to do. But wait, you correctly say is, I don't want multiple systems. That was the whole going around thing that we don't want to do. Well, okay, but we can manage it where we isolate, we separate, we make it so that your systems are not imposing the burden on your customers. And that's what's happening now, is your systems and your need to process is imposing the way you think about what your customers need to do. And so you're delivering that to your customers. You're forcing them to comply with your systems, not with the way they want to interact with you. Let me give you another example. One of the things that often happens, and sometimes it happens when you're doing commercial transactions, sometimes it happens when you're doing employee-related transactions, but often there's a scenario whereby, as part of this transaction, then we need to submit something to a government agency. And the government agency says, here's the form, and it's a piece of paper. All right. You see this on automotive agreements, and we do this for a bank in the US, where they have to put packages together, and part of it is the license application, a government form that needs to be submitted in. Employees often do this, and what happens is that the organization, you, because you're trapped, pass that pain along to the customer. Here, this is the government form, fill it out. And so the person gets it and they fill that information out. It's all information you have. It's all information that was filled out in the other forms too. Well, yeah, but this is the government one. You got to do it on their paper. All right, we fill it all out, they sign it, and they give it to you, and you give it to the government. Except that that's not really the way it should work, because the government said you needed to provide that, not the customer. You need to provide it on behalf of the customer. Customer needed to sign it. Customer needs to review it and approve it. But why did you put all that data in there? Well, because it's the government form. Okay, no reason why you can't do that. No reason at all why you can't put that data in there for them. You can do that, right? So why would we do that? So another example that I'll give you of where we got this separation, an organization that have done a really good job of doing this separation, is Intuit in TurboTax. And there's other tax software, and they do a very, very similar thing. But if you think about that, if you've ever used that, I use that, okay, is you go through a very simple set of screens, a wizard-like process that isolates all the pieces. You enter critical information first, then you enter this piece of information, then you enter this piece of information, and it guides you through the process and gives you assistance, okay? At any point in time, you can click on a menu item, and you click on a menu item explicitly, and up opens the actual insurance forms, all of it with the data all inserted into it. So if you actually need to see the raw form, and if you need to do something special that the wizard didn't handle, you can go into the raw form and do whatever you need to do inside of there. And when you go and you save it, I save a copy for myself. It saves the actual forms so that if I ever get audited, I can hand them here. These look exactly like the forms you want to see. But what was interesting was when I save those forms for myself, those are not the forms that are submitted to the government. What's submitted to the government is data, because the government supports electronic filing. The government doesn't want to see their forms. Okay. They didn't need the forms when I filled it out in the wizard. So the forms exist for what purpose? Document of record. They're my copy. They're my document of record. That is a perfect example. You can do that with every single document you got in your organization today. The technology exists. You can separate and isolate your operational requirements, your systems, your people, your needs, and separate them from what the customer, your users, experience. You can have these two isolated so that we can give the user a wonderful user experience and pass that data into your systems as if it was a piece of paper that they filled out. You could actually set up, if you wish, a web interface. The user creates it, then it creates a PDF document that looks exactly like the documents you would have sent them, that goes to a printer that prints it, and as the printer feeds out the printed form, it goes into a scanner, which then OCRs the data, and then it goes into a shredder. You could do that if you want. That would be insane, okay? But you could do it, and that's the concept. All right. Now, once you've got to that level of insanity, you recognize, well, hold on, I got the data, so I can feed the data in. And now you build data pieces that connect it. And that gets you not around, it starts you paving over the trap. And that's the better way to go. Don't go around it. Let's get rid of the trap. Let's build a bridge across it. Let's start filling in the holes. That's what we want to do. Let me give you two examples of how you can do that. Right now, you are probably, I hope, at least doing fillable PDFs. You created a PDF document, you overlaid it with fillable elements associated with it, identifying with the fields, and you have given this to individuals who can download this. They can fill it out, probably in Acrobat Pro, maybe in the browsers. That's a little flaky lately. Okay, a lot of people were using, the original Internet Explorer, and with that being finally deprecated, now Edge is not supporting all of the functionality they were used to. So, okay, but now you got a fillable PDF, but it looks exactly like a piece of paper. This is the psychological trap that you're in. It does not have to look that way in PDF. You can make a PDF. We've done this for many organizations where you have a PDF that looks like an application. Tabs across the top, beautiful buttons, dynamic behaviors, data integration, tabular lookups, very complex table structures associated with it. You can build a very, very, quite frankly, beautiful interface inside of a PDF that then captures all of that data, has them enter the address once, not 4 times, has them enter this piece, has dynamically breaks out the number of beneficiaries on an item, the number of dependents that you've got for it, the number of products you want to select. And that inside that PDF can still produce the 8.5 by 11, 5/1000ths of an inch thick piece of papers that you need to see on the other end that they can then print. When they hit the print button, it doesn't print the tabbed screens, it prints the filled PDF, ready for a physical signature, or submits it into a workflow for a digital signature inside of the PDF. You can do that. That exists today. But the better solution is to use a server-side mechanism that allows for a browser-based wizard-like interface that guides the user through the process, that is mobile ready out of the box. No application needs to be built. No maintenance needs to be built for a mobile application. You don't have to test it on all of the different devices. It works. All right. A web interface that allows the person to grab that information, all right, to gather that pieces in associated with it, and still produces that 8.5 by 11 document out of the back end. Because That person might want to save it. They might want to print it. And if they do, they have the ability to do it. But better, it submits it into your organization so that your process then runs correctly. Nothing changes on your process. If it goes to a data entry person, they can do data entry. If it goes to an OCR process with a review, goes through an OCR process. What that lets you do is then move later into paving over the trap by extracting the data, because we got the data, extracting the data and using this as the document of record and feeding the data into the system. Or maybe your systems have completely cloud ready REST APIs. Well, we can call those REST APIs. Now we can pre-populate data. Now we can do all sorts of interesting things. But instead of trying to tackle it all at once and say, I'm going to solve all of these problems, go through it phase by phase. Build your phases up. Make it better for your users. Make it mobile ready. Don't break your back-end systems. Do what you need to do to manage it. Now it becomes an internal operational technical problem, not a user interface problem. It lets you isolate and separate those two things. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, is the technical and the psychological trap that paper constrains organizations into, that forces them to do things that really aren't the best things, specifically for their consumers, for their customers, for their users, but also isn't the best thing internally. And that there are incremental ways that we can cover this, address this, make this a better environment for everybody. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. And if you need any assistance, you have any questions, you're saying, Eric, you said this PDF thing, but I don't know how to do that. You said this thing, I don't know how to do that. Get in touch with us. This is something we can guide you through this process and lay out a plan for you. This is where we can help you get out of this trap. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.